Today we stand with Jesus on a mountaintop as he is transfigured before us, his true identity revealed. When I've come to this story in previous years, I have thought of Moses and Elijah as primarily linking Jesus to the history and the past of Israel. And they do. They represent the law and the prophets. But as I came to the story this year, I saw something new, something I had never before realized about Moses and Elijah, something they have in common. I realized that both men had faced serious pain and struggle in their lives and had somehow found a way through. Amid the brutal violence of Moses' childhood, he was taken from his family of origin and raised in the home of the very man who was ordering the killing of all the Hebrew baby boys. Centuries later, Elijah was hunted down like an animal. He was facing multiple attempts on his life, all because he dared to challenge King Ahab and Queen Jezebel. He was someone who endured hunger and thirst, displacement, and deep despair because of his ministry. He, like Moses, could have easily become consumed by bitterness at what he had suffered. But neither of these two men saw themselves as victims. Somehow, each of them was able to understand their lives in the context of God's unfolding work as they became pillars of the faith. Their presence on the mountain here with Jesus as he is preparing to go to his own death on the cross is significant because they know what it is like to face tremendous suffering and find a way through. Pain and injustice were coming for Jesus. Like Moses and Elijah, Jesus was about to incite the wrath of the rulers of his day. But first, he spends time with these two men, receiving the wisdom and the encouragement of those who have gone before him, as they help him find courage to face what lies ahead, until the point where Jesus is able somehow to pray even from the cross for the forgiveness of those who crucified him. That is an ultimate example, one that may be far beyond our human capacity to forgive. But in Moses and Elijah, we find two ordinary people. People who likewise could have been consumed by bitterness, could have given in to this temptation, and yet found a way toward forgiveness. Now, I don't mean to minimize in any way the pain that Moses and Elijah went through or the painful experiences that we have had. They can be absolutely devastating and profound. Like Moses, we may have had a traumatic childhood. Like Elijah, we may have faced persecution or rejection as adults. But Moses and Elijah show us that those experiences do not have to make us bitter people. They show us that ordinary people like us can find freedom through forgiveness. Today, we're going to get highly practical on this topic of forgiveness because it is likely to be something that touches all of us in one way or another in our lives. Dr. Fred Luskin is the foremost forgiveness researcher of our time. He's director and co-founder of the Stanford University Forgiveness Project and author of this incredible book, Forgive for Good. Luskin has developed a highly practical, teachable, research-based approach to forgiveness. Today I'm going to share some of Luskin's key insights But I commend this full book to you. There's so much wisdom in these pages. We're just going to scratch the surface together today. It's so good that we have copies available for you if you want to go more deeply into this topic. They're in the narthex after the service today. Dr. Luskin has conducted extensive research on forgiveness. In his own life, he's experienced the power of it in healing his own relationships where there have been pain, and he has witnessed its impact in diverse situations where people have been wronged or mistreated. Everything from the pain of a spouse with an untreated addiction to a hurtful relationship with a parent to the suffering of mothers in Northern Ireland who lost children to the troubles there. Luskin has seen and has demonstrated time and time again that there is hope when we learn to forgive. First, however, in order to understand forgiveness, we have to consider what forgiveness is not. Forgiveness is not forgetting that something painful happened. Forgiveness is not excusing poor behavior, condoning unkindness, denying or minimizing hurt. Forgiveness does not mean reconciling with the offender. Forgiveness does not mean you have to give up having feelings. So what is forgiveness? Well, forgiveness is the peace you learn to feel. Forgiveness is for you and not the offender. Forgiveness is taking back your power and taking responsibility for how you feel. Forgiveness is about healing and not about the people who hurt you. It is a trainable skill, just like learning to throw a baseball. Forgiveness helps you get control over your feelings. Forgiveness can improve your mental and physical health. Forgiveness is a choice, and everyone can learn to forgive. Forgiveness is becoming a hero instead of a victim. When we think about Moses and Elijah in these terms, we see that they had every reason to see themselves as victims. Victims of terrible, brutal violence, trauma, and persecution. But instead, Moses and Elijah found a way to become heroes in their stories and powerful examples of forgiving those who have wronged us. Likewise, Jesus had every reason to see himself as a victim of Rome, a victim of the worst kinds of injustice perpetrated against him by the very people who were his own family, his own community. But instead, Jesus became the ultimate healer, the ultimate savior, the ultimate hero of the world. So how do we learn to forgive? How do we attain and access that healing and transformation in our own lives? Well, it begins by recognizing if we have an area of grievance. Luskin writes about this concept of a grievance or holding a grudge, and he describes it in this way, writing that it might form when two things happen. First, something happens in our lives that we did not want to happen. And second, we deal with that problem by thinking too much about it, or, as he writes, renting it too much space in our minds. Luskin says we can determine if we may have a grievance like this by asking 4 questions. Do you think about this painful situation more than you think about the things in your life that are good? When you think about this situation, do you become either physically uncomfortable or emotionally upset? When you think about it, do you do so with the same old repetitive thoughts? Do you find yourself telling the story about what happened over and over in your mind? If the answer is yes to any of those 4 questions, Luskin says we may have likely formed a grievance that is renting too much space in our lives. And so we are in the right place to learn how to forgive. As Luskin writes, no one's past has to be a prison sentence. Had Moses and Elijah stayed in the prison of their pain, holding grudges against Pharaoh and Ahab and Jezebel for ruining their lives, they would have been giving far too much power to those who had wronged them. Forgiveness helped them, and it helps us take our lives back. For while a victim is one who often feels helpless to respond to painful circumstances or control their thoughts or feelings, a hero has worked hard to overcome adversity and refuses to be beaten by difficult life events. Forgiveness is a journey of moving from telling the story as a victim to telling the story as a hero. Luskin provides 3 highly practical ways that we can begin that journey of being turned from a victim into a hero through forgiveness. First, he offers the image of a TV and points out how we have the choice all the time about what we're going to tune into. Are we going to watch the horror channel or the pain channel or the nature channel or the beauty channel or the gratitude channel? What are we going to stream on our TVs in our minds and in our hearts? What we tune into is where we're going to focus. Second, Luskin teaches what he calls the breath of thanks. It means slowing down several times each day, simply to breathe deeply and to repeat the words, thank you, thank you. Thankful for the gift of breath and the gift of life, such powerful, simple gifts with each of us today. Third, Luskin teaches a practice that he calls PERT. It stands for Positive Emotion Refocusing Technique. And it's a way to live through and to find peace in those times when we're feeling in our bodies or minds the effects of an unresolved grievance or an ongoing relationship problem. Today we're going to close the sermon time in a moment by experiencing that practice together. And we do so in the spirit of Moses and Elijah, who found their own way to forgive the hurt that they had experienced, moving from the victim to the hero of their stories. Today, may we be guided by the heavenly voice, urging us today to listen to Jesus, to listen to his words, to listen to his teachings about so many different areas of our lives, including the power of forgiveness. So I invite you now to get into a comfortable position, and if you are able to do so, to close your eyes. Bring your attention now to your stomach as you slowly draw in and out 2 deep breaths. As you inhale, allow the air to gently push your belly out. As you exhale, consciously relax your belly so that it feels soft. On the 3rd full and deep inhalation, bring to your mind's eye an image of someone you love or of a beautiful scene in nature that fills you with awe and wonder. Imagine your positive feelings are centered in your heart. Continue with that soft, gentle breathing. Ask the relaxed and peaceful part of you what you can do to resolve your difficulty.